I want to go back to resources and renewables. So, Deputy Gation, you said it's going to be a long time to inventory and clean up these sites. We've heard more about that subsequently. And I have to say, it's a bit disappointing, that we have a new government that sort of campaigned on being solutionists and fixing problems and doing it quickly. And, we also have all acknowledged in this House that we are in the midst of a climate crisis. And yet, we know that we have these toxic sites. And so I want to dig into that a little more. The first is, Deputy Dean mentioned earlier when we were asking about recovery plans, well, it's in the mandate letters. Well, I have to say that cleaning up contaminated sites is not in the minister's mandate letter, and that is very concerning, along with what we're hearing about sort of indeterminate timelines. So I guess I'll just focus on what we've heard, and I'll ask, I'm told that sites are being ranked high, medium, low priority. Can you give us a sense of how many sites are in each of those baskets?
Deputy Gation?
I would ask Mr. Burke to answer that.
Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Deputy, and thanks for the question, Madam Chair. There's roughly about 10 to 12 sites that would be ranked at low risk. There's about 24, I believe, that would be at the medium level, and about the same roughly in the high risk category. What we did do, though, what we did find out as we did these assessments is ownership becomes a major issue. We're looking at contamination on Crown lands. That's the direction given to Nova Scotia lands. One of the biggest things is that some of these sites, of course, it might be you might live on a property that has an abandoned mine site next to you, but the stamp mill could have been on your property. So then the question then becomes, does government claim to be third-party impacted? So there's big challenges in terms of property ownership and how this stuff moved around. It's something we didn't anticipate, so it kind of made us back up a little bit and take a look at it, because our risk rankings put public health at the highest risk, of course. And what I'm happy to say, though, especially on Montague, we're well advanced on Montague. We have done some human health risk assessment studies. Lake Charles, Barry's Run. We have a final report coming out on Montague itself. The human health risk potential is very low because arsenic is the main contaminant of concern, and mercury. These are gold mine sites. I might mention that these sites, some of them are limestone quarries, which could be just a typical quarry, like Conrad's Quarry in Dartmouth, for instance. That would be considered a mine site because they did open mining. So some have relatively low risk from that perspective, but we do look at them from all potentials. The gold mines seem to have the biggest because of mercury and arsenic. But the arsenic's not bioavailable, so I guess when you say toxic sites, I haven't seen any that would alarm me to being toxic that I wouldn't walk on it myself without PPE, for instance. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing. I don't want to alarm the public in Nova Scotia that these are significantly toxic. They're contaminated, most of them, but some of them aren't contaminated, as Peter alluded to as well. So as we work through them, we're finding anomalies as we go through, and that became a bit of the lag. And of course, I go back to the questions about Boat Harbour. When we first went on Boat Harbour site, the initial liability was $20 million. As we knew a little bit more, it became $100 million. As we knew a little bit more again, it became $180 million, and now we're up around $270 million. So as you learn on these sites, that becomes the issue. And of course, with the accounting folks in the room, they want to be able to have precise numbers on why these costs are what they are. So I could easily, I joke with, when we have our meetings with the AG, I joke with them that I could easily pull out a cigarette pack and give them all kinds of numbers, but I can't defend them. So until we have the science to defend them, that becomes the challenge.
Ms. Chender?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, as to your question, is government third-party impacted? Yes, I would say. And then the other piece, I understand that there's lots of debate around toxicity, but of course the twin crisis with our climate is biodiversity. And so whether or not I would walk around in PPE, I would argue that at least the 24 ranked high, if that health issue is one of the key ranking points, ought to clearly cause us concern.